This is Brian Zavada from Lakewood, Colorado, Flower Street Farm. Welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast.
Welcome to Beekeeping Today podcast presented by Better Bee, your source for beekeeping news, information, and entertainment. I'm Jeff Ott.
And I'm Becky Masterman.
Today's episode is brought to you by the bee nutrition superheroes at Global Patties. Family operated and buzzing with passion, Global Patties crafts protein-packed patties that'll turn your hives into powerhouse production. Picture this: strong colonies, booming brood, and honey flowing like a sweet river. It's super protein for your bees, and they love it. Check out their buffet of patties, tailor-made for your bees in your specific area. Head over to www.globalpatties.com and give your bees the nutrition they deserve.
Hey, a quick shout out to all of our sponsors whose support allows us to bring you this podcast each week without resorting to a fee-based subscription. We don't want that, and we know you don't either. Be sure to check out all of our content on the website. There, you can read up on all of our guests, read our blog on the various aspects and observations about beekeeping, search for, download, and listen to over 250 past episodes, read episode transcripts, leave comments and feedback on each episode, and check on podcast specials from our sponsors. You can find it all at www.beekeepingtodaypodcast.com.
Strong Microbials presents an exciting new product, Superfuel, the probiotic fondant that serves as nectar on demand for our honeybees. Superfuel is powered by 3 remarkable bacteria known as bacilli, supporting bees in breaking down complex substances for easy digestion and nutrient absorption. This special energy source provides all the essential amino acids, nutrients, polyphenols, and bioflavonoids, just like natural flower nectar. Vital for the bees' nutrition and overall health, Superfuel is the optimal feed for dearth periods, over winter survival, or whenever supplemental feeding is needed. A big plus is the patties do not get hive beetle larvae, so it offers all bioavailable nutrients without any waste. Visit strongmicrobials.com now to discover more about Superfuel and get your probiotic fondant today.
Thanks a lot, Brian Zavada from Lakewood, Colorado, and Flower Street Farm for that wonderful opening of the show. And this is a special show for sure. This is our Regional Beekeepers episode where we have beekeepers from around the country all here at one time to talk about their season. So I'm looking at a screen, folks, and it's not in alphabetical order. It's just the way that the software put it up here. Paul, introduce yourself, who you are, where you are.
Hi, I'm Paul Longwell from Olympia, Washington. I have averaged between 7 to 11 beehives.
Very good. All right, Jay. Jay is a return here to the Regional Beekeepers.
Hey, my name is Jay Williams. I run a company called Williams Honey Farm, and I'm also the pollination program manager at a local farm-based resort here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I run between, depending on the time of year, 150 and 200 colonies.
Nice. And then we have Ange.
Hey, y'all. My name is Ange Roell. I run They Keep Bees. We are located in Western Massachusetts and Western North Carolina, and we run currently about 350 honeybee colonies in comfort-style hives.
And what kind of hives?
Comfort-style hives.
I'm breaking format here. What is a comfort-style hive?
It's a Ware-style, an adapted Ware hive, essentially. We use those to raise queens, VSH queens specifically.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Bonnie.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Morse. I'm with Bonnie Bee and Company in Northern California, just north of San Francisco. And we do small-scale nuke production and help in one way or another. We also do consulting, manage about 350 colonies.
And last but not least, a return of Duane Combs.
Hi, Duane Combs. I'm with Arizona Beekeepers, LLC in Phoenix, Arizona. I sell nukes and honey, and we'll sell about 300 nukes this year.
And you're also the U.S. distributor of HiveHeart?
Yeah, I also distribute beehive monitoring sensors.
They did so well on the first question. It is so much fun to have so many people in the studio with us. Let's go with what is the best part of keeping bees in your location? What makes it easy? And let's start with Paul again.
Well, the best part in Washington, I think, is the temperate climate. We have a really good summer most years, which makes it really nice because we have a right of variety in honey and pollen throughout the whole season, where a lot of areas, you have extended dearths. So it makes it really easy to keep bees.
Thanks, Paul. Jay, how about you?
I'm going to have to say that the best part about being a beekeeper in Tennessee is actually the public support. There's a massive amount of people that want to either know more about bees, get bees themselves, or enjoy honey on a whole other level. And it's been really fun. More than half of my business is actually agritourism. So it's honey tastings, apiary tours, educational speeches, that sort of thing. And I've never had so much support and people that are, smiling when I come in the room rather than grimacing. So that's a good change for me in life. And so right now it's really, really fun to be in this area and to get to do what I do full time and really get that support that we've wanted for 16 years now. I've been at this thing and it's finally sort of, clicking on all cylinders, and Tennessee is a great place to be doing it. And also one little caveat, we have a really large nectar flow when it's on. So like when it happens, bam, it's like crazy. And then, it's like a distant memory, the next day. But when it's on, it's amazing. So that's what I love about Tennessee.
You said you're near Nashville?
Yes, just south of Nashville.
And I think you get a two-part answer because you keep bees in two different locations. So if you want to talk about both, please do.
Beekeeping in multiple locations is a complicated logistical mapping exercise, especially right now as we're having these really variable seasons. But I think one of the best parts for me is really being able to get so much experience because I essentially get 2 queen rearing seasons in 1 year. And so over the course of They Keep Bees life cycle, we've gotten like 12 years of experience in 6 years rearing queens for the different bioregions in which we raise bees. And really a close second is getting to handle thousands of queen bees a year and learn all about them and their biology and their mating cycles. It just never isn't magic for me.
Thank you. Bonnie, can you share about your operation and what works?
I was thinking about the question about what makes it easy. I don't find a lot of things easy with beekeeping today. There's a lot of challenges, and changing climates. But I will say, I think that here are mild winters, so we're not really dealing with harsh winters. I think that helps a little bit.
Speaking of winters and the changing weather, you've recently been dealing, or this last spring, you dealt with a lot of rain.
Yeah, the last couple years, and this is always kind of a precarious time of year for us because forage has been out. The non-native eucalyptus have been blooming for 2 months now. So on nice days, they're out foraging and trying to build up. And then if they get stuck inside, they can starve really quickly. So yeah, that can be a real challenge.
Duane, last but not least, please tell us about what works in Arizona.
The beauty of Arizona is my winter starts December 15th and ends January 15th.
Oh.
I can grow bees any other time. Now,
Who invited Duane?
Should we even be listening to this?
Buzzkill.
Yeah.
It's so tough down here. Let's not talk about the 20% of my bees that I lost because of heat when we had 38 days in a row where the minimum
We're not there yet. Keep talking about the good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Duane.
That's interesting.
No. Okay, so we talked about the good.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the bad? I think we're calling it challenging. Paul, do you mind going first? Are you put on the spot too much?
No, that's fine. The bad things is definitely winter around here. It's cold. It's freezing. It's rainy. You got to make sure that your hives are kept dry and very, very well insulated and fed really good. Our springs, when they're starting to build up, we have a period where it might rain for 2 months. So you got to make sure you're giving them the right feed and everything because they can't get out.
Having kept bees in Ohio and Colorado, it's a lot different on the west side of Washington than any place else because of the amount of rainfall. And that is, for me, has been a big adjustment because of the moisture in the air. And it's just constantly wet. It's not like it's freezing. It's just constantly damp and wet and raining. And I think that adds an additional stress to the bees and the beekeeper that many of the other beekeepers in different parts of the country don't experience in the winters. I think it's a unique challenge.
Is it mostly showing up in chalk brood? Is that a problem year-round, or is it just losing bees to moisture?
There is some chalk brood in the spring to deal with sometimes. I've seen some places where they're more close to a river or something where it's really prevalent.
Jay, do you want to continue to bring us down and tell us what's hard in Tennessee?
Well, how much time we got? That's my question back to you guys, because you asked for challenges. Jeff, you wanted to keep this at 40 minutes, you said, and I don't know if I can do that.
That's not 40 minutes apiece, Jay.
Oh, darn it. Okay, let me stop everything. Okay, I'm going to give you the top couple, right? We're going to go high level here because I have a lot. But, let's talk about right now. We'll be mysterious and say, I don't know the exact date that this is going to air, but right now, my bees are just booming. Everything is going really well, right? So we're brooding up really fast. There's lots of populations. And the problem is I can't make any splits because I don't have drones out yet that are mature enough. And so the environment around here, the cycles don't allow me to raise queens right now. I have to wait for another few weeks. So I instead are now over supering my hives to make sure they don't swarm too early instead of making early spring splits, which is what I like to do. But you're kind of stuck right now, at least in our area. We don't have the drones for the queens to mate with. So as a result, we're sort of in a holding pattern for a little bit longer. And then also something that we have been challenged with the last few years, and this is going to be a little controversial, but we have a lot of packaged bees coming into our state. And I'm just going to get it out there. I'm of the opinion, just personally, that I'm not a big fan of packaged bees. I haven't seen great results. And I think there's a lot of well-meaning new beekeepers that are trying to start new colonies and start a colony. And most people bring in packaged bees to do that. And we have just had very, very poor results statewide, no matter the producer, just statewide bringing in early season bees in packaged quantities. And so as a result, the genetic stock that's out there is not great. And so there's this sort of battle that we've been facing for a while now, flooding our areas with our stock, our drones to try and raise everything ourselves. But we do have this pressure from a lot of well-meaning new beekeepers that bring in packaged bees. And unfortunately, the quality is just not where we would like it to be. So that's very challenging right now in Tennessee.
What you are categorizing as packages, is it a matter of, is it the packages or is it the beekeepers receiving the packages?
What I'm talking about is actually poorly mated queens that are shipped to Tennessee from out of state in the early season, because again, we really can't raise, I can't shake packages right now. It's just a little early to be making new queens. So as a result, our business is all nucleus sales, but the majority of, we can't supply the whole state. And so there's a lot of people that are getting packages from other states that can do this earlier on. And the quality just for many years now has not been right. And so it's unfortunately flooding our area with maybe subpar genetics.
Ange, can you continue this
spiral?
Sharing
this enlightening and joyful conversation?
We're going to start therapy in the next question.
Yeah,
so just
great.
hold on, everybody.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so for us, there's a number of challenges because we're migratory as well. So we're kind of, first of all, a new challenge that's emerging as a result of changing weather patterns is that now I need to be in two places at once because spring is early in one place and early in another. And the other thing is something that Jay mentioned, which is that I wouldn't say it's package bees per se, because I think package bees with like a Russian queen, a VSH queen, a queen that's of high quality, that's been dropped into bulk bees, can be a really great starter hive. But I would say that one of the challenges we face is well-meaning beekeepers starting up and then having, say, very broad stroke understanding of what beekeeping is and what genetics are and the importance of genetics in raising high quality bees, and starting up in our neighborhood and being like, I'm going to keep 50 hives, and really not understanding what the scale or needs of that many hives are, and flooding our area where we've worked very hard to have, a saturated drone population with just these random bees, and then are out of that operation within a year or 2 years. And so it feels like there is a lot of impetus to participate in the saving of pollinators, but without really an understanding of what the needs are, both ecologically and at a honeybee level, and then even further in at a beekeeping level. Those are big challenges for us. And then winter in the Northeast has always been a wild ride. It's very long, it's very wet, as Paul mentioned, for the Pacific Northwest. And it's very variable. So you can have really warm Marches where bees start to brood up, and then really cold Aprils where there's no food and no capacity to gather food, and bees can starve to death or really crash from a varroa pressure early in the season. So there's a lot of challenges, particularly in the Northeast, to beekeeping. And it's one of the reasons that as a business, we do a lot of education, we do a lot of speaking, we do a lot of intentional, sustainable beekeeping education, teaching people how to raise queens and how to manage hives in a way that's in step with the ecology, so that we're trying to mitigate some of those issues, but it doesn't necessarily get everyone, as Jay was saying. It's a little hard to get everyone when you're a small little business,
That was depressing, but very well said. I think we're going to skip Bonnie right now. Duane, go ahead and...
Well, we have 3 opportunities in Arizona. The first is African bees, which we won't talk about because we don't have enough time. The second is, if it doesn't rain, we don't have flowers. If we don't have flowers, we don't have food, and we don't have bees. And the third problem is summer heat. I was out installing a pool for my bees in one of my bee yards because by the end of this month, it'll be 95 degrees here.
I've heard you on previous podcasts, and your description of beekeeping in the heat was pretty riveting. Can you expand a little bit more about how you're combating the heat when you're keeping bees?
What we were doing is we take a 10-frame box and we put 2 inches of foam inside on each end. So we have 7 frames. And then we put 2 inches of foam on top as an inner cover. And then we use migratory tops on that and wood boxes. Last summer, we had 38 days in a row where the high temperature was 110 or above. And for the first 30 days, I'd go out and look at my bees at 5 in the morning because it's the only time cool enough. And, they'd smile. And then, on the 35th day, they were looking pretty ragged. And on the 38th day, 20% of them were gone. And so we have a hive, I'll start with a double box, basically 20 frames of bees, and watch the heat whittle them down to 10 frames if I'm lucky. Now, what I'm working on this year, I'm working on 2 things. One is I'm working on sharing bees with somebody in Montana so that they will come pick my bees up, take them to Montana for the summer, and bring them back to me in October. And then I'll raise his bees and my bees from October to May 1st, and then he'll take them back up north. The other thing I'm doing is I just did I'm in the process of, we have state land leases here, and I'm doing a state land lease on a cooler part of the state so that the maximum temperature the bees will experience will be 105 or below, and they'll survive that okay.
Bonnie, could you share the challenges that you have with your bees in California?
Well, geez, after listening to everyone else, I say we have no challenges. No, just kidding. Yeah.
Duane was booed earlier, so be careful.
Actually, some good news. Yeah, some good news, because I was kind of inspired by what Jay was saying about the challenges. I guess going back to what maybe is the best part of keeping bees is we have so much local support for locally produced nukes and queens. More so, we really discourage people from the packages. So I guess that's some good news. What's challenging? There are a lot of challenges. And, I said one of the nice things was our mild winters, but mild winters mean really no broodless period. So mites can be a challenge. And 3 of the last 7 years, we've had significant challenges with smoke from the fires. And depending on when it occurred and what burned, the year that the Paradise fires happened, and they were mostly structural, was really toxic, very toxic. We lost 70% of our bees as a county. It was really hard. It can impede queen mating flights. If there's forage available, they're staying at home. So the fires have been a problem. And kind of related just with these extremes with drought and rain have been challenging.
Well, I think this is a great place to take a break, and we're going to hear from our good friends at Better Bee, and we'll be right back.
Give your buzzing buddies the ultimate upgrade with Better Comb. Accelerate your bee colony's growth and honey production with our innovative solution. Made from a synthetic wax that mirrors the qualities of natural beeswax, Better Comb offers a clean slate for your bees to thrive without any pesticide or disease residue. Don't compromise on quality. Opt for Better Comb and watch your colonies flourish. Learn more at betterbee.com/bettercomb. Are you a smart beekeeper looking to stay ahead of the curve? Introducing Bee Smart Designs, the ultimate line of innovative, modular, and interchangeable hive system and cool tools. As a listener of the Beekeeping Today podcast, you understand the importance of staying informed on the latest advancements in beekeeping. This is where Bee Smart System comes in. Designed with you and your bees in mind, our core hive system works with all standard Langstroth equipment and is 8 and 10 frame compatible. Made in the USA, using recycled and American-sourced materials, our products are ready to use. Visit BeSmartDesigns.com to explore our groundbreaking offerings and links to your favorite dealer. Bee Smart Designs, next-generation beekeeping products for the modern beekeeper.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's talk about something that I think we can all agree is fantastic, which is, what is your primary honey source or honey plants in the area where you keep bees? Paul, we're going to go to you first again.
Well, our main crop here in my area is blackberry, and raspberry are the two main ones in Olympia. And then we have a lot of large leaf maple and vine maple as our honey producing plants.
Jay, you hinted that it was amazing and it was fast. What is it?
Amazing, spectacular, life-changing.
Life-changing.
I don't know. Again, I'm going to try and keep this short because I can go on and on, but black locust is our rock star. Usually it's May 1st, which means, is when it comes on, which means it'll probably come on like tomorrow, because that's the way it goes. But when the black locust is here, it's amazing. Everybody's smiling and in a good mood. Tulip poplar's cool. Clover's the easy. It's kind of everywhere. Last year we had a huge catalpa bloom, which is kind of new to me, and we may get that this year again. And then at the end of our season, we close out with basswood, and basswood's got a great, back of your throat, spicy kick to it, good finish. So we only harvest once a year at the end of the entire season so that we can get all those flavor varieties packed into that one taste. And it kind of aids us in our honey tastings. We take people on kind of a journey of the season because there's so many florals.
So you don't separate them? I mean, per flow?
We mix it all together. We found that each nectar source kind of gives you that different taste. And luckily for us, they've sort of tag teamed off of each other. So when you taste our honey, the first taste you get is that black locust. Well, ironically, it's right at the beginning of the season. And then clover is usually in the middle of our taste. And then the profile ends with the basswood tree. So it kind of helps. I don't know if anybody else has experienced it, but in our area, it's really helped for us to wait till the end of the season because we get all those varieties. And then we can go to, I work with a lot of chefs, and I can go to the chef and say, hey, this year, catalpa was a rock star bloom. What can you do with this taste variety? And then they can pair a good dinner with it or something.
And will you share the primary honey plants in your area, please?
So in New England, we start with dandelion. We also have an epic black locust flow. So sometimes if it rains too hard, it can get blown off the trees. It just kind of depends. Last year, it was one of the best ones I've ever seen. We literally had bees queens mating in their mating nooks. And then as the black locust flow hit, they'd be in there for a day and a half and the hive would just swarm, leave just eggs and be gone. So it was that epic. It was insane. It was nothing I'd ever seen. I spent 2 weeks chasing hives out of, swarms out of trees everywhere. It was, at some point I was like, this is just comical now. We also get the basswood, which I love. That's kind of a midsummer for us. We have a good clover flow. And then we have a Japanese knotweed flow, which is a non-endemic, pretty invasive species, grows in the waterways and stuff. But it comes on at the end of our season in New England. And so what happens is that it actually provides like a really strong nutrient-dense nectar for the bees to go into the winter on. It can be almost too nutrient dense. That can lead to like expression of nosema if the bees are sick with anything. But it's a great way to end the season, and we're usually able to get just a little bit of that off. So we have the single floral, like really dark honey, and then an early summer where we, as Jay said, we combine all of those flows into one like early summer honey. And then down in North Carolina, we also get the tulip poplar and the sourwood, which are really beautiful honeys, each with their own special profile that I love.
And are you extracting in 2 different geographic locations then?
Not yet, because we're still growing our North Carolina operation. We're moving our bees from Florida, where we've been for several years. And so we haven't gotten to a point where we're extracting. We're mostly just splitting, making queens in that location and trying to get our numbers and our locations stabilized. But every once in a while, I'll cut a comb off for us or fill a bucket with comb and smash it to take home.
Thank you. Duane, we need to hear what your bees are feeding on.
Our number one is mesquite honey. We're world renowned, us in Texas, for mesquite honey. It's a wonderful honey. You sell it, the customer takes it home, and if they don't use it up in 6 months, it crystallizes. Where my bees are, there's a lot of agriculture, so I get a lot of alfalfa that my bees forage on. Also, some cotton, cantaloupe, cactus plants in the desert are a big thing.
What kind of flavor does mesquite honey have?
It's my personal favorite. I like dark, rich, deep honeys. So avocado, buckwheat, mesquite. And so, I really like it. But what we do in our operation, we only process the honey once a year. So we just mix everything. Call it raw desert honey.
Bonnie, could you tell us about the honey flows in California, please, in your area of California?
Yeah, our area, there are so many microclimates. I mean, just to give you an idea, in a 15-mile distance in the summer, there might be a 30-degree difference. And, so in the southern area, cool, foggy, redwoods. You get to the north and you've got oak scrublands. So really, we don't get any, it's rare for us to get any true varietal honeys. They're really all just wildflower honeys. As I mentioned earlier, early in the season, as early as December in some areas, the blue gum eucalyptus will start blooming. And the native bees are all still pupating at that time. So it's a feast for the honeybees. Our native ceanothus and manzanita are in bloom right now. Frankly, we will get some blackberry. It really depends on the areas. But frankly, most of the honey production is happening from irrigated gardens. So most honey production happens within like a 2-mile radius of the main highway that goes through the county. But one really important plant that comes late in the summer, early fall is our native coyote bush, or baccharis. It actually, you can smell it when you walk into an apiary. It smells like a dirty locker room. Yeah. And you've got to like get it in jars immediately if you harvest any, because it'll be crystallized within a few days.
That sounds like our goldenrod, which smells like dirty socks.
Sorry, I jumped in. I thought we could say it together. There's nothing like walking into the apiary and smelling dirty socks, though.
Yeah, because it's so funny because we get our basswood in July and we have a little dearth. It's like 2 weeks maybe where we don't have anything until that goldenrod really kicks. And that's before the knotweed. And, you'll just smell like nothing. And then it's just like getting punched in the face by a locker room, essentially. It's really so good.
I don't know. What does that say? If I kind of like the smell of the goldenrod infused bee yard.
You're into the terroir.
Yeah.
My first year, the goldenrod hit, and I thought my hives were diseased.
Interesting.
Bonnie, what does it taste like?
It doesn't really, you don't taste that. Yeah, it's pretty mild flavor. That really strong odor it's kind of like some cheeses. They might smell a lot, but you're not tasting that. So it's kind of like that with the coyote bush.
Everybody's looking it up right now. We're going to have to put a link in.
It can be a problem. I know some beekeepers that are migratory don't like their bees getting on it because if they're stuck inside for the winter, it can cause dysentery. But back to our mild winters, our bees can get out for cleansing flights pretty much whenever. So it generally isn't a problem here. It's more of a problem if we don't have the coyote bush because it helps them recover from the summer dearth when they usually lose some weight. And the last 2 years, it's been a bust. Last year, I think it was because we had unseasonably cool weather. And even though they were blooming everywhere, there just seemed to be no nectar flow. And the year before it was the opposite. The buds were just about to break. And then we got a heat wave and it just fried them. So challenges.
I must say that all of your answers, you've just proven that beekeepers are botanists. So thank you for that information. Okay, so let's take things down again.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
We need this information. This is super important.
No, this is important.
Okay, we're going to take Varroa off the table. What are the top 3 diseases and or pest challenges that impact honeybees in your location or operation? Paul, you're doing such a good job.
Well, the big one around here for me is yellow jackets. They dust whip all the apple orchards and everything around here. We seem to be a breeding zone for them. And everybody claims yellow jackets killed my hives. So it's really something you have to watch out for. Another thing is because of the blueberry fields around here during the spring, a lot of people are seeing EFB from the poor pollen from the blueberries. And fortunately, I'm starting to hear some people are starting to have small hive beetles show up in some parts of our state. Fortunately, they're not in my area yet.
Yeah, there's hope that the wet conditions that we complain about, I was complaining about earlier, was may prevent the small hive beetle from being a serious issue around here year-round.
Ooh, they love the wet, though. When they're down in Florida and it rains and it's dark and there's no sun, oof.
We're telling them that they won't like it.
They thrive.
No, they will hate it here.
You're hoping that the wet and cool weather
Yes.
will keep them away.
Constantly wet and cool, not the occasional wet, constantly.
So you're actively campaigning and telling them, stay in Florida.
That's a sign at the
need a lot
border.
of
much warmer.
Signs, I think.
Yeah.
Little signs. Very little tiny signs.
Small hive beetle, you won't like it from October through May. Just saying. All right, sorry.
Okay, Jay, would you share your top 3, excluding Varroa, please?
Becky, you take Roell off the table. Is there really anything else? It's like life would be so much simpler if we didn't have it on the table. The biggest pest problem. Can I start with people?
Sure.
Because
sure.
You sure
in my
can.
area,
Two-legged pests.
People want their beautiful wasteland, right? Those like perfectly manicured front lawns with like the green grass, and there's like nothing there. And then they'll put tons of glyphosate and Roundup everywhere. And so that's very challenging for the bees. Small hive beetle, we do have our issues. We've already started putting in, we use Swiffer sheets here as a mechanical trap to try and trap our beetles. We've already started putting those in the hives, which is pretty early. Unfortunately, it looks like a lot of those small hive beetles survive the winter inside the colonies, which is kind of rare for us. A little discouraging. We do have some yellow jacket issues as well. We had a pretty strong boost at the end of last season of yellow jackets, which was a little discouraging. But primarily, as I said, like Varroa, it's like that's all you talk about. I know we don't want to mention it again. But if I didn't have Varroa, I think I would look a lot younger.
Well, you look like you're 12 anyways.
That's where all my gray hairs come from, too.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you, Jay. And I'm sorry we took Varroa off the table, but I think it's fair to say that if we had left it on the table, we would have started at Varroa and not ended.
Good point.
And I'm wondering if your 3 are different in each location. I'm making you work harder. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, so if we're in Florida, hive beetles are such a pain in my tush because they go after queenless hives, right? As soon as you catch a queen, make a hive queenless to take a cell, they're in there just like let's get it, because they can smell the stress pheromones of the honeybees. So that's a challenge if you're taking Varroa off the table. In Massachusetts last year, we had an AFB outbreak, which is the first time we'd ever had one. And thankfully, we didn't see it in any of our yards, which was really a blessing because it came very close to us. And I'm curious how the Varroa-sensitive hygienic selection we've done over the years has played into that. But I don't have any evidence to play that out. But it's scary because, people are having to destroy all of their hives. And again, I think that plays into that lack of education. Like the beekeeper that spread it, didn't know we had it for several years. And so he was just reusing the same equipment.
Oh, no.
Horrific. Yeah. So that's, I think one of the challenges, I co-sign what Jay said, is that like beekeeper education feels like one of the major challenges for us, especially in the Northeast where those winters are so long and stressful, really having people understand how to manage and treat their hives so they're ready for winter, so they don't get robbed out by other bees and spread disease laterally is really important. And then I'd say as far as pests, bears, like we have to be such vigilant engineers to make sure that our honeybees don't get attacked by bears in Western Mass, in Western North Carolina. It hasn't been an issue yet in Florida, thank goodness, because grass grows faster than anything here. And then I think, like, finally, the other big piece is that the changing climate is changing the bloom times on our trees and stressing some of our trees to the point where they're not even producing anymore. And I have grave concerns about how that's going to play out over the next several years as things shift and what we can actually do about it. Because we really have we don't have a strong understanding of the nutritional makeup of our honeybees. And I know there's a lot of research going into that right now, but really understanding what plants for pollinators we could be planting to begin to mitigate what is coming is something that I'm always holding and curious about so that we can address nutritional issues, which then become pest issues further down the line.
Duane, could you please share your top 3 with us?
Yeah, again, everything comes from Varroa for us. We have no bears, although I have lost hives to javelinas, which are not a pig, but a pig-like creature. Small hive beetles I've only seen them in 2 places. We have some residences that have flood irrigation, and you can see hive beetles in the flood irrigation land because the ground will stay wet enough. The other time I've seen it is I make my own patties, and I make them as wet as I can. And so I've seen a few hive beetles in those, but if I pull the patties out, they go away. So they're not really a problem. See a few wasps, but it's not really a problem on any of the hives. My biggest killer is heat and Varroa.
You took the Africanized bee off the table early on, but is that an issue or pest for you?
Yeah, because what happens is on an annual basis, about 1 out of 100 hives, an African swarm will come land underneath the hive and then send worker bees up into the hive. As soon as they can get admitted, they kill the queen, and then the African queen moves up into your hive, and you have a hive in about 60 days that you'll get some degree of warm. Now, one of the interesting things with Africans is some of them are just horrible, and most of them are just aggressive bees. One of the things we've started using is we put a layer of nylon window screen, because we like to use an air gap above the box. And so this keeps the bees from coming up. And one of the nice things is I can pop the top off and the bees are under this net. And so I can look at them and lift up a corner to see what the response is without lifting the whole top off and having the bees swarm me.
That's an interesting adaptation to measure defensive behavior.
Well, the real problem is we can't open mate because the African drones are faster and tougher than the Europeans.
Okay, thank you, Duane. Bonnie, can you bring us home with 3 top pests and disease?
Major pest right now, oh my gosh, and I dealt with a hive full of, like, the inner cover full of them today. Ants, they're the worst. And when it's frequent that, we'll open up hives at the end of winter and you'll find an ant colony living on the inner cover and the bees have propolized, so they can't get down into the hive. This was a full-on colony today. It was horrific. So, and, during our extreme droughts, of course, everything is hungry. And for ants who can get into these hives, that can be a real problem. I would say the next one that would have been number one if you'd asked me this question in August, September, yellow jackets. They're just terrible here. And, with all this open space that we have in our area and lots of nice nest cavities in the ground for them, where it can be really difficult to find their nests. But just like Paul was saying, definitely here, I always say to beginners in classes, you read in the books that a strong colony is not going to succumb to yellow jackets. They absolutely do here if you're not vigilant, in restricting entrances and helping the bees out. Number 3, it's not a major problem yet, but because it's so new, and that's bear. I mean, historically, there were grizzly black bears and brown bears in this area, but for over a century, they were gone. And now they're slowly coming back. And so in a few apiaries that we've had, they've been torn apart on multiple occasions before we finally had to start setting up electric fences. But that's new for us. So trying to figure out where it's going to hit next and whether or not it's worth the time and effort putting up electrical fences, that's challenging right now.
Before we go to the last question, I just want to open it up to any of our regional beekeepers want to ask another regional beekeeper a question.
Bonnie, do you see any African bees in your area?
Once or twice, and it's because beekeepers moved them here. They were brought from Southern California. So knock on wood, at this point, they're not up here breeding. And we try to, educate people to not bring bees in from the southern part of the state. Stick with the Northern California bee breeders if you want to buy bees and buy them outside of the county.
Jay, I saw you raise your hand. You had a question.
I got a two-parter. I got 2 questions. First, to Bonnie, I'm definitely not pro-ant. I don't have the t-shirt that says I love ants. But have you ever found, my wild and crazy theory is, have you ever found that the colonies that have those massive ant colonies in the inner cover, like you're describing, are your best colonies? I have found that when I open up a colony, I'm like, oh my goodness, they're everywhere and it's warm and they're like prolific. When I go down below, it's like, this colony is insanely cool, tons of honey, and it's a strong one. It's almost like a flag when I'm in the yard, like that's going to be a potential breeder or start or finish a colony because there's a ton of ants on top. It's the most random thing, but I was curious if you've ever seen that.
That's a great question. I need to pay closer attention to that. Actually, the colony that I was in today was very strong and clearly not bothered by them. And, a lot of times I just kind of let them be, if they're not bothering the colony, ants are pretty cool. Ants are very cool.
So you're pro ant.
But when they are, I'm pro ant, but it's kind of like yellow jackets. Like I'm pro because they've got their place, except when you start messing with my bees. And the problem we do have with ants sometimes is in our nuke yards, where they can just literally take over. So we do have anti-ant platforms that are just plywood boards with carriage bolts, and we put a 50-50 Vaseline baby oil mixture, which is fantastic. It's very effective to keep the ants out of them. Fortunately, we don't have to use those every season because what a pain, just more equipment, but we have them if we need them.
The whole ant problem question just brings to mind that commercial for the insurance company about I have ant problems. And there's Johnny. Have you answered my Facebook question yet? All right. So thank you.
Wait, Jay had 2 questions. Are we going to let him ask a second?
I'll ask the next one really fast. But so I just last week got back from Italy, believe it or not, from a honey sommelier school. I'm not a honey sommelier. We're very careful to use that expression. But in school, we were tasting and testing a bunch of different varieties. And they say dandelion out there. And so my question for Ange is, if your first flow is dandelion, what is the taste of your dandelion? Because the dandelion in Italy smells like the worst, stinkiest feet you've ever, experienced. You're like, get it out of here. And yet when you taste it, it's amazing. It's like a warm, it's warm butter. It's very floral. It's great, but you want to pinch your nose, instead. And I'm curious if that is your beginning flow for your season. What is it like for you? And does that impact the rest of your taste profile throughout the season?
Yeah, what a great question. So what I find with the dandelion honey where we are is that we don't get much honey because it's often used for brood production because it's so early in the season. So we see a lot of nectar come up to the point where we have to super, but then it all gets eaten back and put into both brood and drone production. And we don't mitigate drone production here because we are a queen producing operation. It's like castrating the hive. And so we really let that run by letting the dandelion grow up. So I haven't tasted it where we are, but I've been in the Midwest and I've tasted it there. And I agree that it smells quite stinky, like feet, but is like one of those honeys that I was like licking the bottom of the jar when I finished it. But I've never noticed that sort of like funk that shows up in our early season honey in the same way that I can notice, like I can pick goldenrod out from knotweed and whether a batch has more goldenrod than more knotweed in our fall flow, like that, like, oh, that's more goldenrod, that's more knotweed, because I can smell and taste that funk immediately.
Any other questions?
I'm just wondering if there's like a top 10 list of really funky honeys that smell like feet but taste really good.
There's one in Florida called Brazilian pepper, which is the late season honey, and it is neon green and it tastes very bitter. Actually, kind of like the mesquite I've experienced in my tastings, but it's really, really bitter, and a lot of people don't like it. Or like, why is it neon green? But I love it. It's great for cooking and like for barbecue sauce and sort of that kind of thing. But I'd add that to the funkier flavor profiles that I've experienced in my time beekeeping.
It sounds like the honeydew from the lanternfly or something is supposed to be.
Oh
really...
yeah, that stuff is weird.
Everybody, what is your favorite method to control Varroa? Paul.
OAV.
Jay? Come on, Jay.
Formic Pro.
And?
Yeah, I use OAV as well.
Duane?
Oxalic acid.
And Bonnie?
Stock selection.
Very good. Doesn't that feel good that you shared that information with everybody?
Becky, what's your favorite?
Oh, I have a great relationship with Formic Pro. Jeff?
I don't have Varroa. OAV. Thank you to our regional beekeepers. Enlightening show. I love listening to everybody's feedback, their experiences, and it just helps me personally and our listeners, better beekeepers, for hearing that everybody faces challenges and have reasons why they keep bees, because they're so much fun. So best of luck to you this season. We look forward to talking to you all again. Keep in touch. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
And that about wraps it up for this episode. Before we go, I want to encourage our listeners to follow us and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, wherever you download and stream the show. Even better, write a review and let other beekeepers looking for a new podcast know what you like. You can get there directly from our website by clicking on the reviews along the top of any web page. We want to thank our regular episode sponsors, Better Bee, Global Patty, Strong Microbials, and Northern Bee Books for their generous support. Finally, and most importantly, we want to thank you, the Beekeeping Today podcast listener, for joining us on this show. Feel free to leave us questions and comments at the Leave a Comment section under each episode on the website. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot, everybody.